Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome to another best of 3 series of professional StarCraft 2. Now what I got for you today is a Terran versus Protoss between two players who are easily in the top 10 best players in StarCraft 2 right now. Now before I fanboy onwards, let's go ahead and get started by introducing the players. Spawning here in the top left hand corner of Dreamcatcher LE in game number 1 of this series, and playing with the red Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea, he plays for Storm Gaming, and he goes by the name of Gumiho. At his opponent, spawning in the bottom right hand corner of the map. He's also from South Korea, actually one of my personal favorite Protoss players on the planet. We are currently looking in the main base of Zest. Did you like that camera work? Oh, my twisting and turning there? Maybe I should start over here next time and be like, you know, loop-de-loop around their base. This is one of the things that a lot of the professional observers do. Anyways, sometimes I look at my own observing skills. I'm like, wait, why do I keep doing that? There's no reason to be. It looks pretty. It looks pretty. Anyways, so here's the thing. Both of these players, like I mentioned, are easily in the top 10 of best StarCraft 2 players of all time. As a matter of fact, recently in the GSL Code S quarterfinals, Gumiho got eliminated by TY. However, very shortly before that, he actually, statistically speaking, overtook Innovation as second best Terran player on the planet. Now, even though he did end up falling to TY in the quarterfinals, TY in the semifinals then met none other than Zest. I believe this was actually yesterday or the day before. I watched the games. I'm pretty sure it was yesterday, but regardless, Zest ended up winning that series and is now waiting of the winner from Classic versus Maru in the grand finals of the GSL. So basically what I'm trying to say is that both of these gamers, I'm trying to say it with a lot of words, but both of these gamers indeed are at the very best and the top of the line level of StarCraft 2, and they are participating in the best tournaments, beating the very best players on the planet as well. I'm hyped for this one. Should be really good. Usually around this time of the year, when GSL is just about to wrap up, usually it gets pretty tricky to actually find any replays at this level. So usually players will stop participating in online tournaments, they will stop live streaming, and basically they will try to make it as hard for their opponents as possible to find out any additional information. But apparently they did play in this cup just a couple of days ago, so I'm really hyped for this one because it should be a really solid one. Alrighty, so here we go. Reaper already making a big loop all the way to the top right-hand corner before making its way across the map and indeed confirming that this is going to be a really quick nexus here for our Protoss player. Twilight Council already coming up here as well, and actually the Stalker will now ward away this Reaper. The Reaper trying to get the kill there on the probe. Now I'm actually curious, did he get the vision there? No, he didn't. Alright, so Gumiho did not quite see the Twilight Council there. Oh, smart rallying there from Zest, actually. Just rallying the Stalker over in this direction just to sort of make it more difficult for that Twilight Council to be spotted. It's really small moves that really do make a difference at this level of play. Anyways, Gumiho now following this up with a Cyclone. He's already got the Starport coming up, as well as the Widow Mines on that production tab. Cyclone is gonna apparently wait here in the bush for just a little bit. I was gonna say it's moving across the map. This is not a random wait or whatever. He's trying to see if that Adept decides to shade the cross, so he could easily pick it up. Apparently though, by judging this timing right now, he knows that this is not the case, and even though apparently there was a second Stalker as a follow-up for Zest, he is still gonna meet with this Adept just a little bit further out onto the map. Probe now already looking actually to maybe take a third. I think that's gonna be it. Regardless though, ooh, this is cute. Shade now moving forward, trying to get the body block, trying to prevent that unit from leaving. This is a 1 square space. Adepto does end up falling. Gumiho taking a lot of damage here on that Cyclone, but now... Oh, that is so sexy. Gumiho, that was so cool. Did you see that? Okay, let me recap what went down there. Sorry, I was just shouting at my screen. Sometimes I forget how to commentate. That was so sexy. So basically the Cyclone was at like 2 HP. Right now it's being repaired up, but he put it on hold position right there at that choke. And since it's only like a 1 square choke, right, it basically means that another unit, only to get vision, right, would have to walk all the way around. And the Cyclones, or rather the Stalkers couldn't do that. That was so cute. Anyways, right now though, even though it's not a super big deal, as long as the response is good, this Medevac is completely unscouted. Zest does have Blink done, so you should be able to deal with this. Oh, sick. Hold position micro there once again, but really quick. Split off right there as well, actually, by our Protoss player. Did you see that? It's these little moves, right? I was just saying it. You see that really cute little move where Gumiho didn't just do a Widow Mine drop, he dropped the Widow Mine right here. The probes were right there trying to get across. Now apparently Zest saw what was going on. He immediately mineral walked to the probes right here to the mineral patches in the natural rudder. But still, that is such a difficult thing to do. Players just microing at all ends. It's so cool. I hope I do a good job trying to explain these really subtle differences, because it's so difficult to do. I mean, I would have personally lost my entire mineral line already. Anyways, Stalkers have now made their way across the map. There is no Warp Prism or anything out just yet. Medevac is still trying to deal some damage here. Cyclone going after the Nexus, but the Cyclone will definitely end up falling. At the same time, Stalkers now making a bit of a move for it. Medevac does get picked off for practically free. There's only one Marine in that bunker. Couple more will end up dying here as well. Nice little pick off there by Zest, as he does manage to get all of those units out in time. At the same time though, Mass Recall will now be forced to the other side of the map, with the Medevac once more trying to be a little bit of a nuisance. It didn't look very significant there initially. I think Gumiho just picked himself up like another 5 or so worker kills with these Widow Mines inside of that Medevac. He's trying to intercept the Medevac now actually. Look at that. Zest, forcing that Medevac to go all over the place. These observers are smart, you know, in really smart positions. I think actually the one on the other side of the map must have been picked off. But there are still, you know, a couple of them just simply hanging out, trying to be a little bit of a nuisance. Now, these Widow Mines... Oh, dude, that's so cool, though. Did you see that once again? So if you blink at the correct timing, you can prevent yourself from really losing anything. It's very difficult to do. Would not recommend doing it until, you know, you are at least at a level where you feel comfortable making those moves. It's very difficult to try and achieve that. But right now, there's also a Liberator moving across the map, or I guess it already has arrived. There is a Photon Cannon coming up, so this is definitely on a timer, but a lot of lost mining time here already. Both players now, of course, going for that third base macro here instead. A lot of gateways just finished up. Zest now also going for the double forge upgrades. And while the Liberator apparently... did manage to siege up right next to an observer. It probably can't see it. I mean, you kind of can if you're paying really close attention, but it's really difficult to see that. And obviously, I mean, at this level of play, look, they are continuously spamming an average of like 8 buttons a second. They are looking at a lot of different screens, so usually these observers are pretty difficult to spot. Now, matter of fact, once again, decided to go back in. Beautiful. Oh my god, man. The blink there was really good initially. Still a lot of damage, though, was done. Widow Mine's not picking up a lot of kills just yet. The one here in the back actually left alone now. At the same time, a big bio army is moving across the map. This one will be picked up just barely in the nick of time. The question is there going to be enough right now for Zest to defend against this Gumiho timing attack? +1 infantry weapons did just finish up. We see Medevacs, as well as, of course, Marines, Marauders, and then also Stimpack and Combat Shield. Even though the rocks were just destroyed, Zest didn't quite want that. He's gonna... once again, destroy one of the pairs over here just to sort of create this tighter choke. But it looks like Gumiho is sort of giving his opponent that respect that he deserves. Not really overcommitting with this push here whatsoever. Just sitting back, macroing up a bigger army once again. So, even though we saw these really cute, you know, relatively minor moves so far, I would say that a lot of players would have already lost at this point in time, including myself. I mean, if I would have played, I probably lost it at the Widow Mine drop, right? It's so difficult to achieve these really subtle micro mistakes. But anyway, here we go. Anyway, it's really easy to mess those kind of things up. Apparently, the Medevacs did load up. They tried to head into the main base, not quite going to be the case. And even though the Widow Mine's there, he's just simply trying to do that every single time. Still, now the Medevacs managed to actually find themselves a bit of an angle. The majority of that Protoss army is now moving across the map. We see a lot of Stalkers here warping in defensively as well. There is already, of course, that one Photon Cannon that does help out quite a bit. At the same time, though, this Protoss army doesn't look like it's gonna slow down anytime soon. Medevacs are still gonna drop off, but at the cost of that third base. Command Center will be picked off almost immediately. We see now more and more Zealots being warped in here as well, but they are just simply gonna die very, very rapidly. Keep in mind, of course, Mass Recall can be forced here at a moment's notice. So Zest is not gonna be in that much trouble, although he doesn't really have a lot of energy just yet. He does have the option to cast that spell here in just a bit. A lot of probes now moved off that mineral line here as well. Zealots will now also be warped in, and eventually those Medevacs are deflected. They are gonna go home. Now I'm curious here why Zest is not actually going for a push here. It looked as if he could have done a lot more damage, but I think he may have poked up for just a little bit, but he did decide to not go after that. Instead, he's now hungry for those Medevacs. The Medevacs will be spotted. Ooh, just barely not getting kill on it, although a few Marauders were dropped off, and a few more apparently are gonna have to pay that price as well. 2 Immortals in that Warp Prism being microed simultaneously, because of course microing only one fight is way too easy. Still though, may have overextended with it. Gumiho is indeed gonna chase that one down. Air-to-air damage of Liberators is not that great, but they will be able to get that Warp Prism, and then also, of course, the 2 Immortals there. Very nicely done, actually, by Gumiho, and I think that may very well be the beginning of a bit of a comeback. I mean, he wasn't looking super strong here. He's still only, like, this is the one thing that I don't like for him, right? He's still only sitting on 2 command centers. Third one started up once again. Supply-wise, he is ahead, but already, and I like this a lot from Zest, Zest decided to go for the gold base in the top right-hand corner. This is a base that is not really easy to scout for a Terran player. I mean, you're not just gonna drop a scan there. Most Terran players would expect the 4th to go up right over on this side, and we did now see a Marine being stimmed forward into that direction. It's gonna double-check that. As soon as this Marine confirms that indeed there is no 4th Nexus up yet, I think that Gumiho may be able to sniff out that there is something in the top right-hand corner. It's very easy though to assume at this point that Zest is in a phenomenal position. And he's definitely in a good one, economically speaking, right? But I really don't mind the spot that Gumiho is in here either. The only thing that he doesn't really have going for himself right now is economy, but he did save a lot of those workers, right? So he's got 34 SCVs right now mining that base. I almost feel like he should go for a double expansion right now. Oh, Dark Templar does get spotted. It will also be picked off here, but I mean, the longer that this goes on, right? I mean, right at this point, I feel like Gumiho is playing a little bit too passively. He's been really active here for a while, and kudos, I guess, to Zest for forcing, forcing this Protoss player, or forcing this Terran player rather, to stay back for this long already. Is there not a scan available? There is. It's gonna need it as well. There we go. But, I mean, the longer that this game goes on, right, the bigger the army of Zest is gonna be. He's not gonna go for that robotics bay. He's going for more and more upgrades. He's just about to finish the attack upgrade right here as well. 4th base has now been secured at the gold base, so that income of our Protoss player is gonna skyrocket. And I gotta say, right, initially I didn't mind the position that Gumiho was in if he was gonna play a little more aggressive. He was playing aggressive the entire game long, but at this point, he's in a little bit more of a scary position. Anyway, of course, keep in mind, there are no spellcasters here available for Zest. Widowmines will be able to deal at least a little bit of damage. The thing is, there's no Widowmine, or there's no High Templar or anything along those lines, right? Which is a little bit scary. Gold base, completely unscouted up to this point. If Zest manages to hold on here, I think he's still going to be in a good spot. He's not going for Colossi, which is going to be very, very important. Massive blink, though. Going straight after all of those Liberators, and the amount of Zealots now charging forward is absolutely phenomenal. Still, those snipes on the Ghost, or rather the EMPs on the Ghost, was definitely not something to forget about. More and more units are coming up here. I really don't understand why Zest did not add on any High Templar or anything along those lines. He's so late on that splash damage output, right? At this point, Gumiho has got himself a massive force. Even though he was 2 bases up, Zest is now up with his back against the wall. There is now that Colossus out, so that Colossus is going to be able to start beaming away at these Marines in particular relatively easily, but at the very least at the cost of 1 Nexus here already. He's going to try and go for a bit of a pincer attack, massive warp in here. Got to get a lot of those units away from this army. There's actually also a couple of Dark Templar trying to help out. Probes pulled off the line as well, but the Dark Templar have been spotted, or at the very least have been revealed. Another Colossi will be finishing up in just a little bit here as well. We see extended thermal lines now coming up as well. But I feel like Gumiho is not going to slow down. He's got an awful lot of units here already going for the kill right now. He is smelling blood. If only he would have known about the gold base in the top right-hand corner. I think he would have sent units there a little while ago already, but it does not matter. Zest delayed his splash damage for a little bit too long. I think that my critique, though, of Gumiho there may have not been justified here. I wanna retract my statement there. I thought that he was playing a little bit too passively, but he must have realized that, wait a second, there's no High Templar here. There's no robotics bay. He scouted a lot, obviously. He realized that there wasn't gonna be any splash, so he just simply sat back for a little while, knowing that it might be 4 versus 2 bases there for a bit. He just simply sat back and then went for a big push when he felt satisfied about his army. Beautiful play there by Gumiho. He does end up winning game number 1. Alrighty, so here we go. In game number 2, we spawn on Lost and Found LE. I'm really curious though why Zest did decide to transition towards splash damage so very late. I mean, usually whenever players do transition towards the mid game, they will also go for one source of splash damage at the very least. So either Colossi or maybe Disruptors even, or of course High Templar. Now maybe Zest was planning to go for the High Templar play, but he obviously, you know, he noticed that his opponent was already going for Ghosts, so obviously, you know, making that transition is a little bit awkward. I would have expected him, though, to go for maybe the Colossi a little bit quicker upon noticing that Ghosts were already out. He did go for the Colossi, but they weren't, you know, they weren't started up until, like, the 4th was already almost done, right? And knowing that you knocked your opponent on 2 bases, going for a 4th and then for splash damage, seems like a bit of an interesting order there. Now, obviously, us as the almighty observer of this game, where we can watch everything that's going on, you know, we're obviously able to judge that quite easily. But in a you know, in an in-game situation when you're facing someone of Gumiho's caliber, making that decision is a lot more tricky. I guess he like when the Zealots initially charged forward, it really did look like the fight was gonna go in favor of the Protoss there for a bit. But the thing is, after the Liberators were sniped, the Marines and the Marauders and the Medevacs were still left over, and they just simply stood their ground. A little bit of probe harass here on that SCV. He's got to try and shoo that unit away, maybe force the repair here for just a little bit, but eventually, of course, that barracks does finish up. Yeah, I really wonder why Zest delayed the splash there for a little while. I guess it must have been because he already saw that there were some ghosts out here as well. Now, my Korean is not that great. Okay, it looks like he's requesting something here from Crank. Yeah, okay. It is gonna be a quick pause, but eventually the game was resumed, and it looks like we are gonna be able to continue onwards. Now, I'm curious to see if there's gonna be any cheese in this game whatsoever. Usually I've noticed that whenever pro gamers cheese, in the comment section of the video, there are two type of viewers, okay? The one group of viewers absolutely love watching cheese. The more cheese, the better. And then the other half of the viewers absolutely hate it. They think that cheese is the most disgusting thing that has ever existed in video games. I personally like to think I'm in both camps. I love cheese from time to time. I do think that cheese is absolutely critical when you do want to win tournaments. And obviously I say that, but the most successful tournament player of all time is still going to be Innovation. And I mean, while he does, while Innovation did certainly switch it up over like the last year or so, there's no denying that he most of the time plays a very standard macro game. But usually at this level, you will see players cheese at least once or so in a best-of-3 series. I think that Gumiho in particular has a little bit of wiggle room to play a little bit more greedy. Already going for the second barracks here rather than the starport first. So a little bit of a switch up here as far as his build order goes. This is definitely going to allow him to transition towards bio a little bit quicker, maybe get his upgrades and whatnot a little bit quicker as well, but obviously he's not going to be able to really harass his opponent very much whatsoever. Now, Gumiho is definitely a player who adapts, depending on how this series is going, right? So obviously in game number 1, while he ended up winning, his early game harass, even though his Widowmine drop was spectacular, right? With that hold position and all that. And like putting them on the perfect spot to really try and slow down the retreat of the probes. While it was spectacular, Zest really didn't take a lot of damage. So, you know, he's still going to go for the starport, but he is going to be able to start up his stim pack about a good minute or so quicker. Which definitely does, you know, make the mid-game of this match a little bit different as well. Now Zest, though, he managed to successfully deny that Reaper from entering the main. This time around, he's going for a really quick robotics facility, and he's following it up with a robo bay already. So I was critiquing his splash damage in the previous game. Well, looks like we're going to be seeing some really quick splash out of him in this particular game. Actually, usually it's going to be the player that's 1-0 ahead who's the one who gets to play a little bit more cheesy. In this particular game, though, it looks like it is going to be our Protoss player instead. Curious to see if he's going to go for maybe some drop play or if he plans on... you know, just going straight up into Colossus. Disruptors definitely do still have their place. He really wants to deny that, though. Look at that. Oh! Oh! Yeah, and he does spot it. Beautiful play there by Gumiho as well, though. I mean, it is absolutely critical that he knows that this is coming. He sees that something is being produced. He knows the Robo Bay is done. Extended Thermal Lens is now coming up as well, so it is indeed going to be Colossus play. A double Widowmine and a single Cyclone, though, are now loaded up into a Medevac. I wonder if Gumiho decides to go for a push right now. He could go for a move out right now, or he could sit back and maybe get a third base. It looks like he's going for a move out and a third base. Pretty interesting decision there. Obviously, Colossi are going to come out really quickly here, and, then holding on is going to be pretty tricky as well. Obviously, Colossi in particular are good right now against light units. Now, all of the units here for Gumiho are light. These Marines will melt to Colossus really early on into this game, and I kind of feel like he's moving across the map a little bit, maybe too aggressively. Would have loved to see a Warp Prism. I think a Warp Prism would have been phenomenal. Still, the Cyclone have now made its way across the map. Matter of fact, taking a lot of damage already, and that one will end up dying. Cyclone is going to try and pick off that pylon. Looks like it successfully manages to do so. At the same time, though, Stimpack now finishes up here as well. The Marines are smelling blood, but they will see that laser giraffe. And the laser giraffe certainly is going to be able to zap away those units for a little bit of time. Oh, that force field. Trying to stutter step and move back and forth with the Widow Mines. So tricky. He doesn't have... Yeah, the Observer is not coming up. He doesn't have any blink just yet, obviously, so he's not going to be able to really make that move out for it. Third Command Center is going to finish up here for Gumiho. Does he have any Marauders whatsoever? He does have 2 Marauders. Actually, 7 probes that end up going down. Wow, okay. So even though Zest knew that there were still Widow Mines there, he apparently got a little bit carried away. Going for the probe transfer here regardless. Pretty sure they just simply died to the Widow Mines there. Anyways, so there's not a whole lot of Marauders here available yet for Gumiho. And these Colossi, man, I mean, they don't mess around. Colossi are gonna be absolutely insane. Look at that. These days, Colossi really are light damage dealers in particular. They are great against units that are light. Marauders obviously aren't, but Marines certainly are, and they're gonna be able to, melt those units very, very quickly. So Vikings are coming up right now too. I feel like at this point, you really need about... I would say at least 8 or so Vikings to comfortably start getting rid of all of these Colossi as well. That does mean, of course, that the medevac production will be slowed down quite a bit, and therefore drop play is not going to be quite as prevalent anymore. It does look like Zest, though, is going to go for a bit of... I hope so, at the very least. I hope he's going to go for a bit of a timing attack here. I mean, the third base is saturated. He's not taking the gases over there. He's not going for a second forge. And he's going to follow it up with gas now. I'm assuming he's going to go for a bit of a push, though, here in just a bit. Because the fact of the matter is that he's going to have a really strong army. But the longer that he waits, the more and more Vikings will come out. And actually, right now, 4 are already being produced here by Gumiho. Every moment that goes by, he's going to have a lot of them available. Going up to 6 already and continuously building up more and more of them as well. I love that. So as soon as he saw that there were Colossi out on the map, Gumiho decided to go for the second starport. Still, though, very, very Marine heavy at this point. Gumiho is going to have a pretty menacing force. There's no charge done just yet. Blink will be coming up in about a half minute or so from now. Just trying to chrono boost out as many of those units as he can. But he does now recognize that there is a very massive push moving across the map. Quite surprised with the passivity, though, of Zest at this game. I mean, you would have really expected him to go maybe for a bit of a more timing-focused build. But instead, he's just simply sitting back, allowing his opponent to do whatever. Trying to go for the death ball kind of army. The question is, does he have enough right now to deal with this massive Terran force? Supply-wise, they are pretty much dead even. I mean, there is slightly more army here for Gumiho. Supply-wise, in army, he's going to be slightly ahead there. But still, he needs to be careful with some properly landed force fields. And these Colossi dealing damage, they can deal an absolute massive amount. Still, great micros so far, though, by our Terran player. Really trying to snipe as many of these Colossi as possible. Stalkers, though, trying to target fire down all of those Vikings. And with the Vikings gone, the Colossi... they're going to be able to deal the damage from a distance. And look at that force. Initially, that fight definitely looked strong for Gumiho. But Zest had the laser giraffes, and they absolutely smashed everything. Alrighty, so that brings us to game number 3. The final match of this best of 3 series. Let's see if the Protoss player here is going to go for something a little bit different once again. So he decided to delay his splash damage in game number 1. Then he went for really quick splash damage in game 2, just to make sure that he wouldn't fall in the same trap once again. Gumiho did make a lot of Vikings there, but I guess he really just was not happy with the way that engagement went. I mean, maybe if you're new to StarCraft, you may have looked at that fight and be like, hey, didn't he kind of leave preemptively? Maybe, kind of, in a way, but the thing is, as soon as your army gets smashed, you know that Zest is going to make a move out across the map, right? He's going to go for a Warp Prism and just warp in a ton of army, and there is no way you can really hold the counterattack. Oftentimes in best of 3s and best of 5s and whatnot in particular, you do see players leaving quite early on. Even though the game may not necessarily be over, like mentally speaking, they don't want to be, you know, they don't want to be stuck in a game that they've already lost. You won't notice this at the highest level of play, like the GSL Code S's and all that. They will usually stick out for as long as they possibly can, but in a lot of scenarios, it is a little bit dangerous for your mindset as well, I suppose, to stay in the game for too long, even though you may have already lost it. Now, Gumiho hasn't really mixed it up yet whatsoever this series of game, right? I mean, he did go for a different build, obviously going for a much quicker stimp pack, allowing him to go for that push that he executed quite a bit quicker as well. But all things considered, it really wasn't a game that it was, you know, fundamentally different than game number 1. He still aimed to try and do a little bit of economic damage. He managed to actually deal a bunch of economic damage as well, but then his army was just not up to par. Apparently, though, the probe managed to force that command center to be built somewhere else. Now, luckily for the Terran player here, he does play the Terran units, so he can just simply lift it up and reposition it. But it's a couple additional seconds, and Zest is gonna run with that small little advantage. Small little advantages will usually lead to big advantages a little while later. He's apparently decided to put the gateway right here on top of the caution sign, making it impossible for the Reaper to move up there. Speaking of which, Reaper now already moving across the map as well. It isn't even gonna try and move up on the I guess the back end of this base. It's a little bit risky to try and do that anyway. Oftentimes you will be caught out by, for example, an adept, and instead he's gonna try and loop-de-loop around the base, already singling out a single one of those probes. And actually, you may very well be able to get one as well. Great play there by Gumiho, getting himself a small lead. And once again, it's these little things that do very quickly add up. And obviously, both players are sort of, you know, trying to be a nuisance to each other. Every probe that falls, by the way, I mean, it's not just 50 minerals, but it's also lost mining time. So basically, you got to take into account the amount of time that it takes for a probe to finish up. There's a lot of collateral damage that immediately comes into play as well. Doesn't sound very significant, but say a worker takes 10 seconds to build, and obviously you lost the worker itself. You lost roughly about 60 or so minerals in total just for lost mining time. And obviously, if you lose 10 workers, you know, you lose a lot of resources really quickly. Never do math in YouTube videos at the same time. That's a terrible idea, but it is really critical that you do understand the importance of not losing workers at this point in the game. Every Reaper that gets a kill definitely is going to be an advantage there for Terran. Now these Marines, though, they're brave, right? They know that there's a mine right in front of them, and they are still hanging out. Bob, Jack, and Jerry, look at them. Hanging out with their Widowmine pal. Do you think there's a Widowmine pilot? Do you think there's something inside of that Widowmine? I'm not entirely sure. I'm glad we're discussing this. There's already, once again, that robotics bay coming up here for Zest. I really quite like this, though. He's going for a heavy amount of observers, right? So he's basically scouting out if he's safe to go for this build. If he sees that his opponent is going for a quick expansion, he knows that he's in a pretty good spot. But he's going for a lot of observers, just simply sending them all across. I wish he would have added on like one warp prism or something in between the robotics bay finishing, just to be out on the map in case, right? It's really nice to have that one warp prism. Instead, he's going for a lot of observers here. And right when he gets, oh man, he's going for this like line of observers now. If he puts another one over there, he may actually cover the entire part of the map. But anyways, that's the fourth observer now coming up. Look at that. That's pretty sick. So that's 4 observers here before anything else. And he knows everything. Obviously, you gotta be on point with your micro here if you want to go up against, for example, you know, a Terran player who goes for heavy harassment-based styles. That is magnificent, though. Look at that. He cannot see that observer. I mean, unless he really starts staring at it intently, but those observers are spotting every single thing that is moving here on the right-hand side of the map. Beautifully done. Now, here's what is a little bit more scary, though. This Marine siege tank ball is now going to move across the map. Gumiho mixing it up, going for siege tanks this game instead of anything, like, for example, heavy Widowmine play. Now, Widowmines, of course, are still available here. Bob, Jack, and Jerry are still... I'm pretty sure they're in that medevac right now with their Widowmine pal from earlier. They gotta try and see if they can deal some damage as well, join the rest of the party, but there's another one of these Colossus already finished up. Observer is joining this party as well, and this is exactly the spot where you want that Colossus to be. Those Marines are gonna take a heavy amount of damage, and while of course the Colossi is gonna get shots right now from that siege tank from a bit of a distance, I mean reinforcements should be able to clean this one up. Bob, Jack, and Jerry probably all died right here at this point in time. Liberator now moving into that main base, and I like this one a lot. Obviously, there's not going to be any blink play. Colossus now also actually moving over towards the main base. That's not where you want to have it. Liberator will be able to, at the very least, deal a little bit of damage there, but it more importantly pulled a lot of those units away from the position. Still, that Nexus was already nearly finished up, and that puts cute little bit of pickup micro there, actually, trying to prevent that Colossus from dealing the damage. But anyways, with the Nexus being planted down in a really good time, I like the position that Zest is in. I like the position that he's in right now. Third command center, though, for Gumiho, finishing up right around the same time as the Nexus. And obviously, that does mean he's going to be able to get a pretty booming economy. He prevented his opponent from really dealing any kind of damage. I mean, we haven't really seen Zest play super aggressive here, other than with the Blink Stalkers in the previous, I think it was game number 1. He did play rather aggressive with them, but other than that, it's been a pretty passive game overall. Observer, though, scouting out pretty much everything, right? And I really like this. Look at the amount of observers. How many are there right now? Well, it's still 4 in total, but it's still a really nice setup. Rather than going for the third Colossus, though, this time around Zest, or rather than going for the fourth Colossus, rather, this time around Zest does decide to switch back towards Immortal play instead. He knows that there are going to be a lot of Marauders. He's essentially forced that out with the Colossus, so he knows that he's going to go up against Marauders, and therefore Immortals, once again, will be valuable. I wonder if it's a response right here to the Siege Tank play as well. The thing about Siege Tanks is that you cannot underestimate them. I think if you've played StarCraft 2, you've probably walked up into a ramp where Siege Tanks are patrolling it. And as soon as you walk up there, you lose the entirety of your army and life becomes very tricky. I've certainly had that many a times before. It is easy to underestimate Siege Tanks that deal so much damage, in particular to ground, in Legacy of the Void right now. Back in the day, they weren't actually that terrifying. They increased the damage output of Siege Tanks for a very large amount, making them a lot more similar, I guess, to like StarCraft 1 Siege Tank instead. I mean, I don't know how many of you remember Wings of Liberty Siege Tanks. You had to research Siege mode. But they weren't even remotely at the level of, you know, StarCraft 1 Siege Tanks. So, you know, they weren't really that valuable whatsoever. Wonder how many of you remember that you had to research Siege mode in StarCraft 2. This was a thing. Way back. I don't know if they ever made it to the live game, but I do remember it being a thing for sure, early into StarCraft 2's development. Definitely in a much better spot right now. Anyways, both players having sort of like a gentleman's agreement, right? Zest sitting back here for a very long time as well. Looks like we will be able to see his plan come to fruition right here in this game. Gumiho made the mistake in the previous one of moving out a little bit too early. Now we get to see what Zest was planning in game number 2 here as well. I assumed that he would go for a timing attack, but that does look like it's not the case. He's just simply building up a massive Protoss army. Marines, of course, trying to still see if they can get any kind of scouting information. They're being pushed everywhere, right underneath that observer. Those observers are so valuable, though. Look at them, right? They're everywhere. Really, really nicely done. I wonder what Gumiho's plan is at this point, though. I mean, he's going for the 4th command center already, just adding on more and more barracks. He's now even going for the Ghost Academy once again, and now switching into a Raven. So it looks like we're getting into an army composition that is quite a bit more sophisticated than what we've seen in this series so far. It's going to be a big variety of units. Both players will have to micro it properly, but now with Zest approaching 163 supply, I think he does plan on going for a bit of a move out. He's actually only got 1 pylon coming up. Nexus will be finishing up here in just a little bit as well. But regardless, he is going to be able to deal quite a bit of damage here. There are already so many Siege Tanks out, though. I don't see where he could really push. War Prism will come up here as well. But, like, where exactly is he going to push? I'm not entirely sure. Charge is going to finish up right around the same time as infantry armor level. But with these tanks already done right, I don't see exactly where he could be pushing from. He can try and prevent his opponent from getting a 4th base, and I think that's what he's looking to do at this point. Mostly just trying to focus on preventing that 4th from ever going up. He's got a lot of vision out on the map. One hero zealot here staring down one of these hero factories as well. How do factories fly? Do they just defy gravity? I guess we would then have to make the assumption of what planet we're on. But they seem to never run out of fuel, even though they do need their boosters when they're moving around. Anyway, 4th Nexus is now finished up here in the bottom left-hand corner. We see a lot of Archon here coming up as well. Ghosts are now also being produced for Gumiho, and he's going for a heavy focus on command centers. Yeah, so rather than really you know, risking it and going for another one of those timing attacks like he did in game 2. In this game, he's sitting back. He's like, wait a second. Okay, so you managed to beat me quite handily in game 2. I got you covered in game 1, even though you felt it felt like you were ahead. Let's see what happens if we go towards the late game. Both players are rapidly approaching maxed out right now, and this gentleman's agreement does mean that they're soon both gonna max out, and that does mean that they have to worry about really big armies. Both of the Marines there, though, do end up dying. More and more scouting information is being acquired here from both players. Marines just continuously being sacrificed, right? It's as if at the morning, every morning here in the Terran base, at dawn, 4 Marines get selected to go out into the map and scout for upcoming bases. I can imagine it's sort of like the selection of the Hunger Games, where they select the tributes and nobody actually wants to be picked. I feel like it's kind of similar, because some Marines just have to move out towards this part of the map, or one of them even tried to get into the natural. Here we go. Couple of the tributes right here, over at this base as well, just to try and scout out if it was taken. Apparently Gumiho making the assumption that all of those Marines are indeed expendable, but he is now going for the tactical nuke as well. We see the advanced ballistics upgrade, I believe is what it's called here, the Liberator ranged upgrade for the Terran player too, so he's going to be able to... oh man, look at the command centers as well. So many orbitals. I really like this position that Gumiho is in, but it's all going to come down for one big engagement. Right? Depending on how the engagement goes, this game can be over in a heartbeat. That Raven, of course, providing a lot of support for his army. Anti-armor missiles do change the outcome of the game really easily. It will also come down to the amount of splash damage that Zest's army can bring. I would actually kind of like him to maybe go for some High Templar here anyway. He's not really played any High Templar whatsoever. Look at that. There will be a EMP there on the majority of the army. Ghost still dealing a little bit of damage. Now a couple of other Ghosts trying to move forward as well. It is almost as if they're made in anticipation of High Templar, but he's just refusing to make High Templar. Obviously, it's still useful to deploy it on Shields of the Archon and all of the other Protoss units as well, but, you know, they will just simply regenerate. Here we go. Tactical nuke is coming up. Zest does have an observer. He will be able to spot that Ghost right now. Will he be able to snipe it before the tactical nuke comes up? Never say die. Apparently that is the case. At the same time, though, a big chunk of that Terran force tried to make a bit of a move for it as well. They tried to see if they could get an angle, but that's not the case, and apparently that means that he's once again forcing the Terran, rather that means that Zest is forcing the Terran player back. Now, Gumiho may very well set himself up with a bit of a slow push, now going for a bunch of these missile turrets as well. Big EMP is once again going down, though, depleting a lot of the shields here, and that means that Stimpaks were activated here on the majority of that Terran army. Massive anti-armor missile shredding through all of those Protoss units as well, and all of a sudden, right, with the Vikings giving chase here to these Colossi, the majority of that Protoss army just got demolished. I mean, it did warp in a whole lot of reinforcements, but I've got the feeling that Zealots isn't really what you want at this point. Infantry weapons level 3 is just finishing up. Same for the ground weapon upgrade here for our Protoss player. Terran's mining a lot, right? He's gonna go for another command center here. He can land it at pretty much any base that he likes. But here we go. Once again, a big engagement. It does look like there's a lot of Protoss still available. Siege tanks currently not sieged up. A lot of Vikings, of course, in the air as well. Not achieving a whole lot. It looks like apparently he wants to go ahead and land a couple of those too. But the amount of Immortals at this point is absolutely menacing. No splash damage available here anymore for our Protoss player. The majority of the Vikings, though, was picked off. So apparently that means that Zest is going to switch back towards Colossi. Still refusing to make High Templar. Why is he not making High Templar? I guess there are really early and well-timed Ghost switches here for a Terran player, but I really feel like having multiple sources of splash damage in the late game of TVP is really important. I mean, Colossi alone are going to be great, obviously. Don't get me wrong, but I really feel like High Templar is just so good for zoning and whatnot. I guess it's more or less like a thing that is preference as well. A lot of the Vikings are landed now, though, so obviously it does look like there's not that many Vikings remaining, but it's still 6 of them just simply landed right there on the ground. Here we go, though. Protoss army making a bit of a move for it. Now going after that newly acquired command center as well. Stalkers will be able to nail it down before it morphs into a planetary fortress. Still, though, the Immortals dealing a lot of damage here as well. Marines and Marauders stimming forward, trying to get a little bit of damage in too. These Liberators, though, up in the air, sort of, you know, making this a difficult terrain to pass up into. And the longer that this fight goes on, I mean, the more it will go in favor of Gumiho, just because of those liberation zones, you know, zoning away this army and the Marauders being able to shoot from a bit of a distance. It does look like our Protoss player, though, is smelling blood. Another command center was just lifted up and landed over at this base. Apparently the planetary wasn't going to be an option, but he's still going to be able to continue mining here for a little while longer. Protoss army now cycling towards the center of the map instead, and immediately the Terran army moves in that direction as well. A War Prism now loaded up with a Colossus. He's going to go for freaking Colossus drop harass. Oh my god, this is next level strategies right here. We haven't seen a lot of Colossus drops. It can be really helpful now that he's got the War Prism speed upgrade too. They are really rapid. Vikings are gonna have a hard time. Oh my god, that's so cute. Oh, that's so cute. Vikings, of course, have a hard time, you know, chasing down a speed War Prism. And there we go. It's like the Formula 1 right now for the War Prism. It's gonna be able to speed up out of there very, very easily. Still, Gumiho has got a massive force. Liberators, of course, are gonna be able to zone up from, or siege up rather, from a bit of a distance. Yeah, this is not a position you want to fight into. Anti-armor missile activated there on the probes. Not entirely sure about that part. A couple of the probes now also being sacrificed here for the greater good. But he really needs to be careful, Zest that is, that these Liberators don't get sieged up once again in one of those positions. But there we go. Right, this is a really difficult fight to take. There are so many Liberators out. Question is there going to be enough? The Stalkers can only target fire down either the Liberators or the Vikings, obviously. Either the Colossi are going to be vulnerable or of the other units. The majority of the Stalkers now ended up dying here as well. Gumiho with a phenomenal position. Still going up against the Protoss player who's close to maxing out. But there's no denying that he's got a really big amount of units, you know, himself here as well. Liberators once again re-rallying here. Nexus was picked off. 2 bases there going down. Beautiful EMP actually there by Gumiho too. Getting rid of a lot of those shields on these units as well. And this is now a little bit awkward because players are gonna fight from every single angle. Stalkers moving towards the left-hand side as well, trying to see if they can potentially kill the Vikings that might be swooping in. But it does look like there's way too much Terran. Gumiho playing a phenomenal game. He will be able to get rid of all of those Protoss units. A lot of the Metavacs do remain, and actually maybe Zest is gonna be able to push this one back. But Gumiho's army, it is gonna reinforce very, very quickly. There are still so many remaining Terran units here as well. He's actually got units hanging out at different parts of the map, just simply trying to get, you know, a little bit of value there. Still, I feel like he needs to move back and recoup, right? He really needs to try and reorganize his forces. If he keeps fighting like this, the majority of these Protoss units are going to be able to deal a lot of damage. Couple of Liberators once again going down. Zest microing his heart out, trying to go after all of these Vikings, doing a phenomenal job at exactly that. Zealot still charging forward, picking up a couple of those Marines, and all of a sudden, I actually don't really mind this so much anymore for Zest. Supply-wise, though, there's no denying, and apparently, actually, a nuke was landed here on the right-hand side of the map. You know, supply-wise, there's no denying that Gumiho is currently ahead. He definitely did overstay his welcome there for a little bit. Look at that. Once again, going back towards the good old trusty Zealot with the Stalker support. They can do a lot of damage, but it's gonna be tricky. It's gonna be tricky to achieve anything. Obviously, there is the Liberators on this side, and there's also the Planetary Fortress and that Siege Tank here in the middle of the map. Wonder if Gumiho should go ahead and maybe take the base here in the top right-hand corner. Zest, though, trying to see if he can, you know, still deal some damage. If he picks up units like that, it's really nice for him. Needs to be careful. Ooh, Siege Tank already turning its head there, but it's not quite gonna be the case. Big chunk of Marines and Marauders, though. They just split themselves off from the majority of the army, and they're now gonna go after the Nexus here in the bottom left-hand corner. Absolutely critical Nexus, and with that one falling and the mass recall failing, apparently Gumiho is gonna be the one who ends up obtaining the victory in this series. So wait, Gumiho was defeated by TY in the quarterfinals of the GSL Code S. TY then faced off against Zest in the semifinals. Also a Terran player, of course. And in that Protoss versus Terran, Zest was the one who was victorious, now putting himself in the grand finals. However, even though it was Gumiho who got defeated by TY, Gumiho is now once again the one who ends up beating a GSL Code S finalist 2-1 in a really solid series. It's so funny, like these players are such, like it really depends from day to day as well, right? They are so evenly matched in skill. It's really exciting to watch. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, make sure you hit that that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for helping me out directly. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I will see you in the next one.